Okay, so this weekend was pretty busy for me. Friday was a long day. Saturday I worked, it was also a long day, and then Sunday I just didn't feel like doing it, which was the absolute wrong reason to do it and what I said I was not gonna do, but there it is, I'm human. So, but I'm gonna read today and pick it back up, and then I may do some game plan, but I may actually not because it's already getting late. And this week's going to be pretty tough because each evening I have stuff going on. Maybe I'll find some time in the morning, I don't know, but we'll see. But I did make a commitment, and really out of curiosity to see, if I started doing these readings, what would happen after a year. So I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to keep going and just kind of see what happens because, that's what you're supposed to do when you make a commitment to do it. So here we go. So the last time we read Matthew 6, which was pretty rich, and so is Matthew 7, and this is fun, like the very first line, we get to have a fun conversation right off the bat. And so Matthew chapter 7 verse 1 says, "Do not judge so that you won't be judged." Okay, so let me stop there for a second. Do not judge so that you won't be judged. So this is all about basically doing what you said you were going to do, doing the right thing even when people are oppressing you and trying to get you to do otherwise and being mean to you and not treating you well. And so here, do not judge so that you won't be judged. It's a little bit confusing because we are told in other places, to evaluate behavior. I mean, it's made pretty clear. Like if nobody does anything bad, then everything's good and therefore it all goes. But that isn't true. We're supposed to not do things that are bad. So you have to judge between behaviors, whether they are the right thing to do or not the right thing to do. So what does it mean? Do not judge so that you won't be judged. It really means, in this case, don't discriminate. Don't treat people differently because, and if you follow the lines of what we had read in chapter 6, and if you haven't watched that one or listened to it, go back and look. But if you follow the lines, it's really about doing the right thing. And so, with this, we're supposed to continue on that and treat people well and not treat them poorly because of this judgment, whatever the judgment is. And so verse 1, do not judge so that you won't be judged. For with the judgment you use, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. And so again, if you treat people poorly because you've made a decision about who they are and because of what they do or who, or where they come from or anything like that, it's basically saying with that judgment you use, you're going to be judged, and it's so true. Like you can, whenever you hear someone say, well, such and such, so blah, 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 in the back of your mind you're thinking, well, who are you? Who are you to say such things? Where do you come from? What makes you good? What makes you special? And so we do kind of do that. And so this is basically saying, don't treat people that way. Because you're basically calling it on yourself. You're basically turning that mirror back on yourself. And honestly, when you go through life, you see that very often. When people complain or make judgments, gossip, whatever the case may be, it forces you in that instant to look at them and judge them by that. And say, well, okay, you're making that judgment, but what about you, And so it's just a natural reaction that we have when someone says things. So that's basically what we're told here. Don't be that person. Have mercy. Give credit. You don't know what's going on in a life. You don't know what a person's dealing with. So when you see something, be kind of soft in your judgment there. Verse 3, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye but don't notice the log in your own eye? There it is, right there. You're judging someone else. What about you? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and look, there's a log in your eye. Hypocrite. First take the log out of your eye, then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. I'll go ahead and read the now. I was thinking about commenting, but I'll read the next one. Verse 6, don't give what is holy to dogs, or toss your pearls before pigs, or they will trample them with their feet, turn and tear you to pieces. And, it doesn't kind of seem to fit in the other thing. But I want to go back a little bit, because it says, how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and look, there's a log in your eye? Hypocrite, first take the log out of your eye. So hypocrite, first take the log out of your eye. And so I'm just going to throw this out there, because as I've kind of gone through life, I think, this is my opinion, but I think there's solid backing for it, is that we have a responsibility to always try and be a better person than we were yesterday. And so it's a constant process of taking the log out of your eye, And what that means is we all have issues, we all have problems, we all have something that's blocking our ability to see clearly. And so through life we get rid of one, and then there's another thing that we realize we need to deal with. And I think we have a responsibility, and I think this is pointing that out. It's not saying don't help your brother. It's not saying if your brother can't see clearly, don't help him. What it's saying is deal with your stuff first. And so I think we have a responsibility to deal with our stuff first. And that never ends. That's for the rest of our lives. And help someone, yeah, but make sure you're dealing with your own logs first. So don't give what is holy to dogs, or toss your pearls before pigs, or they will trample them with their feet, turn and tear you to pieces. All right, so what's it saying here? The dogs or pigs turning and trampling and tearing you to pieces. And it's talking about you and judging others and helping others. And I'd be lying if I said it totally makes sense for me here. But I will say, if you look at it in the context of what was just being said, it's basically saying, work with people who are wanting to be worked with. But if you try and help your brother and they're just not, or they turn and tear you up, for trying to work with them, then just back off, right? So this do not judge, this whole little passage kind of comes a little bit full circle. Don't judge so you won't be judged. When you help a person try to take out the speck from their eye, make sure you take out yours first, so you have a responsibility to continue working toward being a better person. But then finally, if you're trying to help somebody and they're not receptive to it, they're just going to keep doing whatever it is they're doing, don't continue. Let it go. They're not ready. Don't try and force it. It's a huge lesson for parents, family, friends. All right. This skips way too much down. I got a new mouse and it just really jumps down. So, verse 7. Keep asking and it will be given to you. Keep searching and you will find. Keep knocking and the door will be open to you. So a lot of people have heard this as ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. But the sense, this version actually translates it more accurately, because it says, don't just ask once, keep asking. Don't just look once, keep looking. Don't just knock once, keep knocking. My niece, I was talking to her about praying, and she said, well, I asked, but God didn't answer my prayer. Well, you need to keep asking. Kids don't have a problem asking for candy over and over. Anyone who's been a parent knows that if a kid wants something, they will ask you until you get driven crazy and either give it to them or say, cut it out. And that's basically what it's saying, that don't just do it once. you got to keep doing it. And a lot of times the timing's just not right. So you have to keep asking. So verse 8, for everyone who asks receives, and the one who searches finds, and to the one who knocks the door will be open. What man among you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, do also the same for them. This is the law and the prophets. All right. So basically he's saying, look, if your kid asks you for food, what are you going to do? You're going to give him something bad? No. So verse 11, if you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more your Father in heaven? Okay, so this word evil, if you then who are evil, it sounds like such a condemnation, but it isn't really, because it's just basically saying, look, you're not all good. You do bad things. So if you who do bad things know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven? So basically what this is saying is, if you ask your daddy in heaven for bread, he's not going to give you a stone. He's going to give you bread. If you ask him for a fish, he's not going to give you a snake, which is a bad thing, right? He's going to give you a fish. So if you who do all kind of bad things in life are able to give good, or even know and are able to give good gifts to your children, even more than that, your Father in heaven, who is good and not evil, will give you good things. So keep asking. Therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, do also the same for them. This is the law and the prophets. Again, it kind of circles back to the first few verses up top, right? And it's not the reverse. It's not whatever you want other people. It's not wait, I'm getting confused. Whatever you want others to do for you, do the same for them. It's not do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Like, that's how we hear it a lot. Do unto others. But it's saying whatever you want them to do for you, do the same for them. So put yourself in the other situation. If you were in their place, what would you want someone to do for you? That's the thing you do. And so it does go back even up to the first few verses. All right, verse 13. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who go through it. How narrow is the gate and difficult the road that leads to life, and few find it. And so there are many ways to go the wrong way, but one way is right. And that's basically what it says. And I think, like, a lot of people take offense at this verse, and I get that. But I think the few find it part is not like you can't find it. Keep asking, keep searching. Keep searching. Hold on, let me go back up to there. Keep searching and you will find. So the problem is not here, few find it. The problem is not that it's so hard to find you won't be able to find it if you really look. The problem is people aren't really looking. So the gate is narrow, there's one way, and difficult the road, so it's not an easy road, okay? So if it were easy, there's a saying, if it were easy, everyone would do it, okay? But it's not easy. It is difficult. Because there are things that you have to make peace with, and there are things you have to give up, and there you have to submit. So it's difficult in that sense, and people don't want to do it. They're afraid of what they're going to find when they get there. They're afraid they don't even want to look, because they don't even think they're going to like what they find when they look. So a lot of people won't even look. Like, people will say all kind of things about Christianity and don't even have a clue what the Bible says. They hear something from some person or a verse taken out of context or whatever the case may be, and then they don't want to hear the rest of it. But you can't judge. It's a huge book. You can't judge it all by a couple of verses, honestly. But because of that, people won't look and they won't find it. So verse 15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravaging wolves. You'll recognize them by their fruit. Right, so there's a concept here, right, that an apple tree produces apples. Grape trees aren't grape trees aren't trees. What else? Peach. A peach tree produces peaches, right? So the idea is an apple tree doesn't make peaches and a peach tree doesn't make apples. So if you look at the fruit, you know what kind of tree it is. And so when you look at what people do, that's their fruit. And that tells you what kind of person they are. So a person can say anything, but what do they do? That tells you what kind of person they are. That's the fruit. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? In the same way, every good tree produces good fruit, but a bad tree produces bad fruit. So, are you seeing good things from a person? There you go. Are you seeing bad things from a person? There you go. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, neither can a bad tree produce good fruit. In other words, apple trees don't make peaches. Peach trees don't make apples. Every tree that doesn't produce good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So you'll recognize them by their fruit. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, drive out demons in your name, and do many miracles in your name? Then I will announce to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you lawbreakers. So there are a lot of people, workers of iniquity. So there are a lot of people who like to, a lot of these people on TV who do all this fantastical stuff and all and claim Christianity and all. Look, it says right here, many of them are going to say, didn't we do many miracles in your name? And Jesus is going to say, I never knew you. Depart from me. Basically, that's people using Jesus, and unfortunately, that's what people see that on TV and they think that's what Christianity is about, and it just isn't. It's not. It's people using Christianity to get what they want, which is generally money, but power, fame, there's different ways of doing that. Therefore, verse 24, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a sensible man who built his house on the rock. The rain fell, the rivers rose, and the winds blew and pounded that house. Yet it didn't collapse, because its foundation was on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and doesn't act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, the rivers rose, the winds blew and pounded that house, and it collapsed, and its collapse was great. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? So when you hear these things that were just said, honestly, it's between chapter 6 and 7. It's all of it combined. But when you hear these words and you act on them, then it's like building your house on the rock. And then when the rains and the storms and life gets rough and all, you can withstand that, right? If you don't do these things, then you're gonna struggle. You're gonna have pain and suffering. And what are his words? Do the right thing. Treat people well. Don't waste your efforts on the wrong types of people. Meaning people who are not willing to listen and make changes and do the right thing. All enablers, raise your hand, because this is speaking to you. Anyway. All these things, don't judge, or you're going to be judged the way that you're judging other people. All these things that were mentioned between the last chapter and this one, those are the things. If you act on them, if you take the advice that is given, then you're going to be able to stand when life, just comes at you. All right, verse 28. When Jesus had finished this sermon, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, because he was teaching them like one who had authority and not like their scribes. And again, the scribes, they could read and write, and they copied the texts. Both the the Old Testament books of the Bible, but also other texts. And so they knew them very well because they copied them over and over. But they didn't teach them in authority the way Jesus did here. All right. So that's it for me for today for this. I don't think I'm even gonna play tonight because I have a long day tomorrow. But thank you for joining me. And even though I have a long day tomorrow, I'm gonna try and do this, and I may try and schedule. I keep saying I'm gonna try and schedule it. Sometimes you just have to do it. Just like this, it's saying just do it. So if I'm gonna schedule it, I'm just gonna have to do it. So have a good night until next time.